Thank you so much for showing up for yourself today and tuning in to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. We're glad you're here. If you found value in this episode, be sure to share out with your social networks. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review on Apple. You know, all the things. Finally, don't forget to take advantage of our free quarterly subscription that is in our podcast description. The link is right there. It's called Better Community, and we would love to have you join us there too. Until next time, take care. Hey, you all. I am Justine Gonzalez, founder of Educator Aid Incorporated, and I will be the hostess of this very first episode in 2022. Welcome y feliz año nuevo. Yes, it is a new year, and I'm so thrilled because our team is going to be offering a lot more voices on this podcast this year. If you are interested, be sure that you click the link in the detail and show notes. Drop us a note so that we can feature you on the Cultural Capacity Podcast. We are still new around here, so please hit follow. Please share with friends. I want to hop right in. The question for this episode, because on January, I'm releasing this prior to, but on Monday, January 17th, 2022, is when we will observe Martin Luther King Jr. Day and celebrate the Reverend, his legacy, and also his birthday around that time period. But this year it happens to fall on Monday, January 17th. I can't think of a better way to kick off the new year than with this question: what did Martin Luther King Jr. stand for? What did he teach about neutrality, right? So I want to break this down a little bit because I am a practitioner in this world of how do we develop cultural empathy, as well as working with individuals and organizations to coach, provide trainings, etc., all around that umbrella, as you see in the show notes, with equity, racial equity, inclusion, bias, etc., anything that falls under this umbrella that I consider culture, because culture is essentially our language, how we speak to one another, how we choose to communicate, our beliefs, our values, our norms, how we operate and make decisions. So all those topics to me fall under how we operate as human beings. So I want to break this down because often, especially when I'm coaching individuals and teams through perhaps difficult conversations that they are encountering, I speak to the element of how do we get ourselves to be neutral as far as our mindset and be open when we're having a difficult conversation. So I want to clearly state there's a vast difference between being neutral and getting neutral. Let me say that one more time. When I get neutral before I go to speak with perhaps a family member if we had a disagreement about something, that means I've taken time by myself to process what was said in the conversation and what are the goals and intentions of wanting to speak with them so I can keep my mind and my heart in check. And I'm not coming with my own agenda, but I can actually be open to listening to the other person. That's what I consider getting neutral. Am I willing to hear another perspective? And also, am I willing to really examine myself, my motives, my intentions, and my purpose? That to me is getting neutral. Being neutral, however, is a whole different conversation, and one that we really, really need to have, because I will tell you every year I see many, many Americans, and there's nothing wrong with it. They decide to celebrate Dr. King on the day that many people have off from school, from different various organizations, to celebrate Dr. King's life. And I see the same old quotes, right, from the I Have a Dream speech about one day living in harmony when we will all get along. Let's have peace. And it's true. Dr. King said those things, and it's true. I think many of us want those things. However, today I want to share with you 3 direct quotes, and I'll cite the sources here as far as what speeches or letters they came from Martin Luther King Jr. So, as we enter into this time period in the United States, February is also considered Black History Month. So, I want to kick off by just denoting that when we're putting things out there, do we really know what we're saying? Do we know what we're supporting? And do we really understand that when Dr. King was giving his I Have a Dream speech, he was not speaking to being in a place of neutrality. And I will tell you why. All right. So, just to give you a little context again, Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the United States is the observance or honoring the birthday as well as the life and legacy of the well-known Black American civil rights leader, Martin Luther King Jr. He was actually born on January 15th, by the way, and he's also a Nobel Prize winner. Again, his famed speech was delivered August 1963, the I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C., and there was about 250,000 people there. So one thing that I want to speak to first is his address that was given on April 15th. And this was a mobilization address to actually end the war in Vietnam. He gave this address in New York City on Saturday, April 15th, 1967. One of the first quotes, actually, how he leads off the speech is this: I come to participate in a significant demonstration today because my conscience leaves me no other choice. I join you in this mobilization because I cannot be a silent onlooker while evil rages. I am here because I agree with Dante that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in a period of moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. In these days of emotional tension, when the problems of the world are gigantic in extent and chaotic in detail, there is no greater need than for sober thinking, mature judgment, and creative dissent. All right. I cannot think of any more appropriate way, again, to kick off 2022 than by reflecting on some of the most powerful delivered words that Martin Luther King Jr. gave us. You know, what a gift for him to share what was on his heart and mind and the sacrifices he made. The next quote that I want to share with you all is actually, the next two are from Letter from a Birmingham Jail, which was authored when he was in Birmingham in jail. And that was April 16th, 1963, when this letter was written. There's many, many ways. The source I'm looking at right now for these is the African Studies Center at University of Pennsylvania. So if you go to africa.upenn.edu, and also you can just even do a Google search of any of these speeches throughout the years, letters, etc., if you want to dive deeper into the character and man that was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So from this, on April 16th, 1963, Dr. King writes, "My dear fellow clergymen," and I'm going to skip ahead. I'm about 5 paragraphs in, and he says, "You deplore the demonstrations taking place in Birmingham, but your statement, I am sorry to say, fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstrations. I am sure that none of you would want to rest content with the superficial kind of social analysis that deals merely with effects and does not grapple with underlying causes. It is unfortunate that demonstrations are taking place in Birmingham, but it is even more unfortunate that the city's white power structure left the Negro community with no alternative." End quote. So right here, when I hear this, I automatically think about the events that ensued following the murder of George Floyd in 2020 and where we find ourselves right now, because you saw an outcry of protest, an outcry of demonstration, an outcry of people being quite performative often on social media and making claims, whether they were organizations or individuals. And I do believe, I will tell you from working on the ground level as a practitioner and in this space of doing coachings, trainings, workshops, etc., I really do believe many people want equality. I do. But I think that it goes beyond just that, to quote Martin Luther King Jr., the superficial kind of social analysis, which deals merely with effects. Okay, so let's get this action taken. Let's do that. But does not grapple with underlying causes. And it's something we really need to think about. How deep are we willing to examine, number one, ourselves? Not so that we can be out here calling other people out, but to love our fellow neighbor, to love our fellow human. What are we willing to grapple with? My final quote I'd like to share in this episode is also from Letter from a Birmingham Jail, and was jail, and was authored by Reverend King on April 16th, 1963. Again, just reminding you. And this, I will read the entire opening paragraph, and then we'll close out our time together. Again, remember, all of our episodes are 10 minutes or less, and it's just designed to give you those bite-sized touches. And we encourage you to use this with your teams. Play the audio to kick off a team meeting. Listen to it easily on your commute from work, or even taking a shower in the morning, especially with them being 10 minutes or less. So please share if you find value, and also submit your topics. And if you want to be a part of this, 2022, again, very new podcast, very, very new, just kicked off before the close of 2021. And we would love to have you contribute. We would love to hear your voice as we continue to grow. All right, so our final quote today. First, I must confess that over the last few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order, quote unquote, than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically feels he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a quote-unquote more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. Take care, and let's continue to get curiously compassionate in 2022. Welcome and bienvenidos to Cultural Capacity, a podcast sponsored by Educator Aid Incorporated, where our team is committed to supporting individuals and organizations on their journey of self-aware leadership, emotional wellness, and development of effective cross-cultural communications. Let's get ready to explore the following topics together by biting into them with little pieces that go really deep to examine ourselves. Topics like bias, culture, cultural psychology, cultural neuroscience, diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial equity. Our episodes are all 10 minutes or less and intended to serve as introspective tools for you as the individual leader or the teams that you're leading. Be sure to check out the links in the podcast description where you can sign up for our free quarterly subscription, Better Community, as well as tap in and submit your questions via the voice message button. Let's get ready to learn together.